Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to wait maybe a few seconds to even a minute until everyone joins us for our webinar this evening. Just a few things. I wanted to say thank you to you guys for registering and also attending tonight's webinar, and also to our author, Wesley Hammond, for agreeing to do this webinar. I know that you guys are back to school, so there's a lot going on, and I know you are busy. So I just wanted to say thank you for taking time out of your busy evenings to join us. My name is Rochelle, and I'm part of the EDCO team. Welcome to EDCO's Biology Plus webinar. Tonight, we are joined by one of our Biology Plus authors, Wesley Hammond, and he will be talking to us about, the planning for the new school term. I'm just going through the available resources and the package on EDCO Learning, and also going through about the best approach to cover the course from September up until June in fifth year. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A box, and we will have a Q&A portion at the end of the presentation. We are aiming to have the presentation for about 30 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A portion because we know you are busy. So this webinar is being recorded as well. So if you do miss parts of it, or if you have a colleague who missed it, we'll be sending a copy of the webinar recording within the next day or two. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you on now to Wesley, and he'll start the presentation.
Thank you, Rochelle, and good evening to everybody. My name is Wesley Hammond, and I'm one of the authors of the Biology Plus package, and obviously with Michael O'Callaghan as well. So look, we're going, as I say, I'm teaching all day today, and I'm sure you were as well. So we're going to keep this hopefully short and sweet. But I really wanted to show you that this Biology Plus package, it's not just about the book, it's also about the other resources that we have. So like we wanted the idea that you come back in September and you have all the resources at hand that you require. So you can see there the list there, the animations, the 3D models, the chapter quiz, chapter summaries, PowerPoints, interactive quiz slash flashcards, the investigation videos, checklists, mind maps, and edible or lesson plans that you can edit as well. So look, I suppose we wanted to try to take as much stress from yourselves in terms of going into the classroom and worrying about having your resources ready. So I'm just going to spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes looking at resources first, just to really make sure you understand what you have access to. So if we first of all start off with the PowerPoint, you'll see there at the beginning of every chapter in your textbook, you'll see there a link where it says PowerPoint up in the top there. And that will bring you to a PowerPoint on that chapter. Now, these PowerPoints have been put together. It took quite a while. You know, we didn't want to just throw them together and just have them just kind of somewhat presentable for you. So we try to make them include everything that's in the chapter. And also, like every teacher likes to put their own idea into a PowerPoint, so you can edit them as well. So you can change it around a little, add a little things well if you want to. But they are there, they're ready. And you don't have to worry about any PowerPoints going into the classroom if you decide to use them. So I think that's very, very important. And the PowerPoints, as I said, we wanted to try to not only include the information that's in the textbook, but also sometimes throw in some questions along the way as well, as you can see here about excretion and the urinary system. So I think you'll find that, I think, very good, and I think that'll take a lot of stress and a lot of planning off your shoulders. So as I say, you can edit it, you can do whatever you want, but it's there, everything's there, but you can put your own slant to it as well. That's in relation to the PowerPoint. Now, at the end of every chapter in your textbook as well, you'll see there's 5 links. And I just want to make sure you see, and you can the students also know that what these involve. So like there's not much to you see the first one there, the chapter summary. Like this chapter summary, again, we spent quite a while. There's the chapter summary at the textbook, but this is the digital chapter summary. And they're similar, but also the digital chapter summary sometimes have extra little key points as well that some of the students can read through. So for some students, I think they'll find that very, very useful. And they include all the key concepts of each chapter. In relation to this is a new thing in terms of being available digitally. I always use this over the last 10 or 15 years, the knowledge checklist. So when a student gets to the end of each chapter and they've revised that chapter, the student then can access this digital form. And obviously you can print this off for them if you want, or they can access it digitally as well. This is just a little checklist that students, when they think they know their chapter, they can just go through it and tick off each one, all done for you for every chapter. And I think again, it takes a lot of hopefully planning and time from your day, because we're all busy enough. So I think that'll hopefully add to your resources that you can use and to help the students learning as well. Of course, then the mind maps. So I don't think this has ever like been available. Maybe I'm wrong, but in terms of digital resources, we have mind maps done for every topic. And sometimes, for example, there's a mind map on the cell, but some topics will have 2 or 3 mind maps. And you can see, like, they're not just thrown together. We spent so much time editing these and making sure that they're colorful. So again, students can use these. Now, look, I want to be honest, some of my students love mind maps and then some really don't like them. So it depends on your student. But again, the students can use this if they find it useful. And like, as I said, these mind maps, we tried to get as much important information onto them. So the student feels that maybe it's 5 minutes before or the night before an exam, and they want to look at something very quickly. This will get them covering a lot of information in a very short period of time. So you can see there the food mind map there, but also one on the food experiments. So again, I think students will find that really, some of you students will really love those mind maps. I think before I go on any further, look, I assume that people know this, but I'm just going to show you, just in case you haven't been on the platform for EDCO, you will see here all of these resources down the left-hand side. You see here, all the ones we're looking at here, like mind maps, PowerPoints, and so on. But of course, also, you can go into the book itself and you can click onto a chapter. And when you click onto that chapter, you'll see it there. So there's the PowerPoint link at the start. And of course, at the end of the chapter as well, you'll see here, I'll just go back to this one here. You'll see the 5 links that I'm talking about there with the resources. So that's how you access them. So I'll just go back to my PowerPoint there and I'll just continue from current slides. So there we go. So yes, mind maps, I think students will find them useful, especially students who sometimes find the whole process of learning all that information, quite difficult. I think that will help. This will help a lot of students make it more manageable. As I said, the mind maps won't have everything on the chapter, but they will have a lot. And I think that would be very beneficial. Look, also, one of the links you saw there at the end of each chapter for digital resources is the flashcards / interactive quiz. So the one I've shown you there is I've taken a shot there from a mind map, or sorry, from a flashcard from the food chapter. So you can see there down at the bottom that there's 52 flashcards on the food chapter. And again, we spent a lot of time, trying to get exam-based type questions in these flashcards. So I know my students, some of them love flashcards and they make them out all by themselves. And it's a very important learning, a very important process of learning. But it might be nice for a teacher to say, look, here's 52 flashcards on the food chapter. You've access to them digitally, and they can use that as a guide to maybe some of the flashcards that they might design themselves. So I think, yeah, look, a lot of work and effort put into those flashcards as well. So you just click on the link at the end of the chapter, and that will bring you then to the flashcards that we've created. So again, I think something students will really find beneficial. In terms of resources as well, you'll see there one of the links at the end of each chapter is called the chapter quiz. Now, to be honest with you, it's not, it's basically just loads of exam questions or exam style questions. And I think it's going to be another really good resource for the teacher if they want to create some exams, tests, but also for the students as worksheets. And look, again, I spent a lot of time putting these chapter quiz basically sheets together in terms of the digital resource that you have now. And you can see like a lot of diagrams also sometimes, but look, especially with this new sample paper, or the new style of paper, a lot of digital, a lot of graphs, and so on. So we try to include wherever possible for certain chapters. This is the excretion, the urinary chapter in the kidney. So you'll see there a pie chart about the urine the urine makeup and the glomerular filtrate makeup, and just trying to show the students different ways that it can be presented. So this is all, a lot of these style questions are in the textbook, but these are more of these questions that you can choose from, and the student can also practice. So look, even the one on the left, or sorry, the one on the right there, you'll see there just on the very bottom right hand side there. You'll just get my color here. So look, part IV, this is from a sample paper. I'm sure some of you have seen one of the sample papers. And you'll see there the question, it says the structure labeled B, which was by the way, the loop of Henle, that's what B was in the exam, has evolved to be longer in certain animal species, such as camels and desert rats. Suggest an advantage this provides to these animals. Now, when I was creating these chapter quizzes, I really wanted to get, a good, questions that are somewhat could be asked in the exam, going by the sample papers. So look, I've spent, you spend a lot of hours going down rabbit holes looking at other countries. So this was an A-level question on the left-hand side. And if you notice the question, look, figure seven, this is over here now. So, oh, sorry, I'll go back there. So it says there, figure 7. You see that one there? It says, shows the structure of a kidney nephron found in 2 different species of rat. One is from the desert dwelling kangaroo rat, and one is from a brown rat commonly found in the UK. So I have that question on your chapter quiz. I want to be honest, I spotted something like that in the A level. So obviously the people who are creating these sample papers are obviously looking at other countries as well, and maybe different types of questions. And by chance, this is pretty much a same type of question. So if a student used the chapter quiz on the urinary system with this question on the left and the question that I've highlighted on the right there, IV, came up in the exam, it means the student has been exposed to more of these type of questions that might be asked. So and there's lots of other questions like that as well in the chapter quizzes. So if we then just note there as well, in the chapter quizzes there as well, at the end of each chapter, that digital resource that I've been talking about. I'm just going to rub this out here. Sorry. So it appears in every slide. There we go. Okay, so in those chapter quizzes as well, I wanted to make sure that there was more students were being exposed to more types of questions that might be asked in the exam possibly. So some of you might be aware that the question shown there is a question from the sample paper. And if you look at the right hand side, it says, look, name the independent variable in this investigation part 2, and what conclusion can the student make from this investigation? So what I did what we've done is in chapter 2, which is called investigating in science, the idea of the independent variable, the dependent variable, and the control variable, they've been introduced again to the student. Obviously, some of them will know it from the junior cert as well. But even though it's only chapter 2, we are presenting students with possible questions. So this one, again, this is all digital. These are in the textbook. There's questions like this as well, but these are more of these questions that students can access and teachers can also access, where they're given a scenario and you'll see there A, B, and C. They have to read that paragraph and they have to decide upon the independent, the dependent, and the control variables, and suggest a hypothesis that this experiment is designed to answer. So we're trying to get the students exposed to as many of these types of scenarios as possible, so therefore they feel a little bit more comfortable when they're asked in the exam. And again, there's just another sample from the chapter quiz on chapter 2 as well, on that digital resource. One or two other things that you'll see in those chapter quizzes as well, and from that digital resource, is graphs. Again, you probably are aware of graphs making going by the sample papers having a big role to play. So we got to get our students drawing graphs. And you see the one on the left there is asking to draw a line graph, and the one on the right is draw a suitable graph. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is we are trying, and there's another one from another sample paper that was given to us. So I suppose I'm trying to say graphs are going to have a big role to play. So it's very important that students are exposed to drawing these graphs and analyzing these graphs. So as you can see, there's more. It's just highlighting the point. All these graphs are from the 2 sample papers that I've just flicked through there. So I suppose what we're trying to do is not just in the textbook, but also these digital resources in the chapter quiz digital resource. The students will have access to graphs. This is one on photosynthesis. This is one on the effect of temperature on enzyme activity. So it's just getting students exposed to more of these types of graphs and practice drawing them, the different types. So that's another thing that you have access to from the digital resource. One or two other little things there that you will also have access to. If you look at the top right hand corner there, you'll see a little video sign. And what that is when you come to each investigation, you or the student will have access to playing that investigation. So it'll be a teacher, either me or someone else who I'll show you in a second, who will be going through that investigation. So it just means that that might come in really handy if a student is out sick, or it also might come in very handy, obviously, if you haven't. Maybe the project, you might see the brief in January, but maybe it's based on something that you haven't done yet in class, and you could say to your students, look, there's an experiment that is somewhat, maybe we don't know yet, obviously, but might be closely based or linked to what you might be doing in your project. So maybe go watch that and watch that video. And I think this is especially important for the ecology investigations, because the ecology investigations are quite similar to what was before in the old course. And we know ourselves, like, it takes a lot of time to go out and do them. So EDCO, we were delighted to get Aina. You see a picture of her there. I'm sure a lot of you know her. She does a lot of TV shows on RT on the environment. So she's brilliant. I have to say, like, she is brilliant. Like, she's so enthusiastic in the videos, and she really goes through the ecology video investigations with you. So again, maybe you might not get ecology done by January, and then obviously you see your brief, the biology in practice, the project that hopefully will be given to us, and you might say, oh God, it's based on ecology. So again, there's the videos. You can say, look, there's Aina, and she's going through it. We're going to be doing it in class soon, but if you want to get maybe a bit of a head start, there is the videos. Go watch them. So that, I think, will be a brilliant resource for a lot of teachers and for the students also. Look, that's in terms of resources, and I think look, there's also 3D models. I won't click into them there. There's ones where you go into the cell, and you can click on the different features of the cell. It zooms in and it looks at the different parts and so on. So it's there. There's lots of resources there. So I would advise you to look through it and just maybe expose the students look, all of this is there for you, and this is going to be brilliant for your, hopefully for your revision and to make life a little bit easier. All right, so that's the resources. Look, in terms of topics and when to cover them. Look, I'm going to just, I'm sure you've spotted this before, but just in case you haven't, the topics that are no longer on the Leaving Cert are gamete formation and plant reproduction. To be honest, let's be honest, like that was one that students didn't really like. So I think that was one I think some people won't mind too much. Vegetative propagation, tropisms. They do mention, plant growth regulators, but there's not a there's no mention of tropisms in the spec. The senses there, the eye, ear, and skin, tissue culturing, lymphatic system, bone structure, sexual reproduction, and fungi. So they're the things that have been removed. But what has been added? Well, you can see, to be honest, I think the part that's been impacted most is the genetics section. I think they've brought in quite a bit there. PCR, genome database, the DNA sequencing, the epigenetics, artificial selection. So I do think that is an area that some teachers that maybe haven't been exposed to before, maybe might have to do a bit of kind of research themselves. So for that reason, I think it would, for me, I know it quite well, but even I think that's probably the harder aspect of the course, some of that. So I'm going to probably leave that to sixth year, and I'll explain that in a little bit in a few minutes' time. But what else is new? You see on the right-hand side there, ecology, a lot of the same stuff, but then they threw in the pyramid of biomass. JNS population curves. To be honest, I think it's nice what to put in extra in ecology. I think it's not too bad. Biodiversity, really interesting, I think. And then I think students will find that quite straightforward. And then species diversity index. Now, what my one piece of advice is there is a formula, obviously, in the textbook, but these formulas, it takes a bit of working out sometimes. So look, there is calculators online called Simpson's Diversity Index Calculator. Just throw it into Google that and you'll get a calculator. And if you want to make sure that the answer is right, it gives you it in seconds rather than doing out the calculation. So if you're doing a lot of different calculations, it's a very quick way to find out the Simpson's Diversity Index number that you're looking for. What else is new? In terms of the cell, you got the Golgi apparatus, you got the endoplasmic reticulum, so you got all that, a few of them little things added, cancer prevention, cancer treatment, classification and domains of life. Now, I do think, that one there it's an interesting one, but it's also one that's very new. So in my mind, I would probably leave that to later on in the year as well. So I'll talk about maybe what to cover when in just a moment. But look, in terms of investigations added to the Leaving Cert, there is new ones, of course, to investigate factors affecting growth of microorganisms. You see the second one there, for example, or the fourth one down there, to investigate factors affecting the rate of transpiration in plants. Or, there's 5 there, but that are completely new. But then even with the ones that you are aware of, for example, even the enzyme one, see the enzyme one there? Oh, see the enzyme. So chapter 3 enzymes there towards the bottom of the screen. Even that, there's it's not just your normal 3 factors, pH, temperature, and enzyme denaturation. They've also included substrate concentration there, investigation 4C, and investigation 4D, enzyme concentration. So look, let's be realistic here. Like, if you were to do all 5 of them in a lab, this is going to take a long time. So look, I would probably take 2 or 3 of them. And get the students maybe to do them within the class, different groups, and then share their results, and maybe just talk about the other couple as well. Obviously, so like to do all 5, I think it's going to be a lot of work. So pick 2 or 3 of them, and then just talk about the other couple. And it's done that's done very well in the textbook as well. You'll see there investigation 3. And to investigate quantitatively the level of reducing sugars in a range of food samples. It's a new one as well. But look, again, look at investigation 4 or 5A there and 5B, 5C. Again, very similar experiment that we've done in the old course, but you have three different factors now: light intensity, temperature, and carbon dioxide concentration. So to be honest, I'd probably do one or two of them in the lab, and I would talk about the third. To be honest, the only real thing that's going to change in that is your variables. So I think that's a really important skill, just to get the students right. Like, look, it's the same procedure basically, but it's the variables that are changing. So please be aware of how to identify your variables. And I think if your student is skilled in that area, they won't be really too worried about the three different investigations. The idea of the three are very similar. It's just the variables, some of the variables that might change. It's the same with investigation 6. And then look at investigation in there at the bottom of the page on osmosis. Again, there's three different ones there. So again, you might do one or two of them in the class and talk about the third one. Just otherwise, it'll just take up so much of your time. And look, I think we get the idea. It's the same with investigation 10, to investigate the factors that affect the rate of transpiration in plants. I know myself, I'll probably do 2, maybe 3 of them in one class, and then I'll just talk about the others. And I will just introduce the idea. Look, it's the same setup, the same way you're going to measure the rate, but what differs is the independent variable that you're changing and so on. So just like, I think that's important skill for them to have. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second in terms of experiments and the exam. Other than that, look, it's the same. I won't go through all the experiments there, but you can see there, the ecology experiments, a lot of them are the same idea, a slightly different slant to one or two of them there. But this is what I was coming to here in terms of the investigations. You can see the one that we're most probably familiar with is the one on the left there, where we use a plant that photosynthesizes underwater. And you count the number of bubbles, as you can see here on the left-hand side. And that's great. And the student has to do a simple calculation there. It's even given to them 1 over d squared. And they fill out the table. And they, again, see your graph there again, you draw your graph. So something like that comes up, I think students will, see it and they'll recognize it. But you see the one on the right there. The one on the right is another one from another sample paper that was provided with us. And it's the same idea of experiment. You're measuring the rate of photosynthesis. But this time presented in a very, very different way. So obviously, I know as a teacher, I'm going to do the photosynthesis experiment in one way, because first of all, in one method, and because look, there's a question from the sample paper there. It says, describe an activity you carried out in the lab to investigate one factor that affects the growth of microorganisms. So I'm going to make sure that my students know a procedure that allows them, for example, to carry out the rate of photosynthesis, and they feel confident to write that up. But I want to make students aware that there's other ways they might present this to you, and they might ask you certain questions. So look, what we're hopefully going to provide there in the coming year, in the next number of hopefully 5-6 months down the line, is we're going to provide a little booklet with for example, the rate of photosynthesis. And in that little booklet, we might just say, well, that's the way that a lot of teachers do it. But here's another maybe 2 or 3 different methods how to measure the rate of photosynthesis, like the one on the right-hand side there. So it won't be going into them in detail. It's just, look, it's the same concept. You're measuring the rate of photosynthesis, but this is a slightly different way that they might present it to you. So if the student can see that, oh God, this is the same experiment, but it's just asked in a slightly different way, I think they'll feel confident that they'll say, do you know what? I know the way we did it in class, but my teacher also showed me other ways that they might present it. So look, we will make that hopefully available to you hopefully in the coming months, maybe 4 or 5 months time, because we're just working on it at the minute, and we just want to tidy it up and get it sorted. So it's the kind of thing where you might just access it digitally and just show the student, or print it off for them and just say, look, students, here is 2 or 3 other ways to do this. We're not going to go into them in detail, but it's the same idea, same type of variables, but it's just a different way of maybe measuring the rate of photosynthesis. So I just wanted to point that out. That is coming down the line. That will be made available to you as well. Look, if we look here, example, Another example of this, a lot of us, when you're measuring the rate of photosynthesis, we're going to measure the effect, the surface area, the concentration gradient, and temperature on how it affects the rate of osmosis. But obviously, like the sample paper, they've given you a different way. So that I'm just highlighting the point again. If we can expose them to a few different methods of the way to measure the rate of osmosis. So, and obviously focus on one, do one really well in class, but just say, look, here's one or two other ways to do it. And you'll see some of that in your the chapter quiz questions as well, some other types of questions like that. But as I said, coming down the line, we will hopefully make it available to you where you'll have a little document. It won't be that big. It won't be that detailed. They'll just say, look, here is another 2 or 3 different ways they might present this to you. And here's the same types of variables. It's just a different way maybe measuring the dependent variables. So just to put that out there, that hopefully will be coming down the line in the coming year. Okay. Other than that, what chapters to study in 5th year? Look, my view on this is try to get as much done in 5th year as you can. And I'll tell you the reason why is because if we have a bit more time on the project, I think, you'll just feel more relaxed as well. So look, this is just a guideline. I'm not saying you have to have all this done, but this is what hopefully something I would be aiming for. So like in September, you want to look at scientific method, investigating in science, characteristics of life, the unit of life, the cell. Now, personally, I'm going to start off with the cell. I'm going to look at characteristics of life and probably do biomolecules. But after those 2 or 3 chapters, I would definitely look at scientific method, investigating in science. I wouldn't necessarily start off with them because, it's just you don't want to get bogged down on all the features of the scientific method. But after 2 or 3 chapters, I think it's very important that you go and you look at those chapters in some form, because I know what's in those chapters. It's a unifying strand, obviously, the scientific method and investigating in science. So what's in those chapters are going to be tied to many other chapters in the other 3 strands. But I think it is important that you actually just for a number of classes go through the key concepts in the scientific method and investigating in science. So when it does come to the experiments later on, for example, that you've covered them and they know exactly about what a control is, the different types of variables, a hypothesis, just to kind of ensure that they have the basics. So I think that's really important. Also in October, I think transport across membranes and enzymes. I think that would be a brilliant place to start off and try to get that done September, October. Maybe you might need a bit more time, whatever you might decide yourself. The good news is a lot of that information is the same as the old course. So it means you're going to be quite confident with it as well. But not only that, like a lot of those chapters will tie in with other chapters. And I'm sure you've seen this already, and I'll show it to you. I'll go ahead and just show it to you now briefly, actually. So like if you look at this, oh, sorry, now what did I press there? So if you look at that question there on blood, all right, and human reproduction, so they've got blood and they've got human reproduction all in the same question. So there's a big emphasis on the link between chapters. So that's one thing I would always be taking the opportunity to tell my students, look, we're studying digestion today, and we're looking at the absorption of nutrients by diffusion, and just to kind of go back and link it to the diffusion, the chapter involving diffusion and the transport across membranes. So I would take that opportunity whenever possible to link it into something that you've done before. The more you do that, I think, the better the student will be in terms of preparation for their exam with that new style of exam. Also, November, the cell division and cancer. Cancer is obviously a lot more emphasis on that, so that's some new material there. But again, we want to get that done early. We want to get cell division done early. Why? Because it ties in with so many other chapters. So it's very important that then maybe a nice place to start. Do one of the couple of human biology chapters, the breathing system, the digestive system. A couple of nice chapters on human biology. Then the circulatory system, and for maybe December, and if you have time, maybe introduce plant structure and transport. Now, in January, maybe it might be an idea to get stuck into some ecology, because obviously the project, the brief is going to be given to us in January, so it might be an idea to maybe get some of ecology done, just in case. Obviously, it ties in. Obviously, we don't know what the brief is going to be on. Then photosynthesis. I think it's important that we get one of those chapters, photosynthesis or respiration, done in fifth year. So definitely, I would definitely do one of them in terms of those chapters. If we go down a little bit further, then in February, the nervous system, the endocrine system, very two other chapters that appear. There's a couple things on the sample papers there from them. Then in March, you see the urinary system, the skeleton, microorganisms, as you see, and then April, you're going back to ecology, investigating an ecosystem and nutrient recycling. And then maybe in May, maybe a little bit on plant reproduction. But obviously, look, it's all going to be, it's all that your plan it will change in January, obviously, because when we're given the brief, we obviously want to, if you haven't done the chapter already, or the chapters that might help with the project, then you'll obviously have to kind of design your next couple of chapters around that brief. Personally, in terms of the project and the brief, my view is, especially in fifth year, I'm going to give myself a little bit of time. And what I mean by that is I'm going to focus on the material in fifth year, try to get as much textbook work done. Now, when I get that brief in January, I am going to take, opportunities to talk about it so they can start to research. And so when it comes to June in fifth year, they'll have done the research, they'll have done a lot of bits and pieces for it. But in terms of actually carrying out the investigation, if it's lab based or field based, I'm probably going to wait till sixth year for that. It's just, I think personally, if I focus on the material first and have a lot of that done in fifth year, I know I'll go into sixth year feeling better. That's like, do you know what? I have time now. I've got a lot of the material done in fifth year, so I've bought a bit of extra time maybe to focus a little bit more on the projects. Look, you probably noticed there the topics on the right hand side there that I to cover in sixth year. This is just me, but I'm just giving you an idea. Personally, I would probably leave a lot of the genetics to sixth year, because I do think that's one section that's more difficult in terms for the student. So again, it depends on the brief and so on for the project, but I would probably leave that to sixth year if given the opportunity, because if we get bogged down that maybe in fifth year, it sometimes puts some of the weaker students off. Look, everybody, some people, I love it. I love the genetics section, but I just think if you get too bogged down in the genetics, it might take away from covering the other chapters. And as you can see, a lot of those other chapters, the biomolecules chapter, the food experiments, the enzymes experiments there, transport across membranes in October. That's based on the osmosis experiment investigations. So you'll have a lot of those investigations done. Maybe by January or February. So you might have done a lot of the groundwork for your project. If your project is hopefully maybe loosely based on one of them, it may not, of course, but it would do no harm. Look, one last thing I will say, because I've gone 30 minutes, 35 minutes, so I don't want to keep you much longer. Look, in terms of the sample papers. I'm teaching in a slightly different way now. Like back in last year, the current 6 years that we have with the old course, you learn your elements: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen for carbohydrates and lipids, and then obviously nitrogen for the proteins. But like when we saw that question in the sample paper, I gave that question to my sixth years last year when I saw the sample paper, and some of the good students who kind of were clued in, like good ability, they got it. But some of the kind of the students that had to work a little bit harder, they found that question difficult because it's not your typical way of I learned the three elements. It's presented in a slightly different way. So as I said, if you can expose them as much as possible to this type of question, it's in some of these questions, types of questions are at the end of the textbook. There's so many questions there. You've got now extra questions on your chapter quizzes, and I want to throw this in as well. EDCO have a couple has a teacher working on 5 or 6 sample papers. So you're going to have access to 5 or 6 sample papers based on the current sample paper layout. So you'll have access to them 5 or 6 sample papers also. I think that's if you can expose the students to as many type of this new style questions. And look, I'll say also about the sample paper, like there is a big emphasis in both sample papers. You'll see a lot of 2 or 3 of these questions on the paper. Describe. So you have to go into a real describe the pathway of blood circulation, as you can see there on the left-hand side of one of these circuits. So the student has to have the ability to be able to go into detail and hit all them key concepts in that. So I think it's very important that students get these types of questions in tests or even for homework as well. To be honest with you, some of these questions are also asked in the old style paper, but I just think there is a slight more emphasis on the more descriptive question for some aspects of the sample paper. And you can see there's more again, describe the non-cyclic pathway. Even that terminology, the electron pathway 1, pathway 2, and so on, that terminology is kind of gone, non-cyclic and cyclic pathway. I know we used it in the previous course as well, but there's definitely more of an emphasis on that type of terminology. One last thing then as well. Look, I told you about graphs. I think students, so they have to know their material, but they have to be able to apply it. So like if students can be exposed to these types of questions, and again, these types of questions are in the chapter quiz. They are, which is at the end of each chapter. You'll see some types of questions like this, and also in the textbook. But as I said, when these other 5 or 6 sample papers come out during hopefully the next number of months, I can't remember exactly the date I was told, but you will have 5 or 6 sample papers. Work on these types of questions. As you can see here, this graph on the left is showing consecutive heartbeats. And the student has to be able to relate when the blood pressure increases there. That's related to the heart contracting and forcing blood out of the heart. So the question on the right, it says there, part 2, use the information given on the graph to calculate the beats per minute. So the student had to realize that in that graph, the heart is beating obviously twice there. So you can see because the blood pressure increases twice. So students, I think I'm going to have to take more time to explain that type of question to the student. So I think, I think it'll be time well spent, because if they have that exposure, they will feel so much better about that. So look, I won't say too much more. That's what I kind of wanted to do today. I wanted to highlight the resources. And look, I'll just show you, I forgot to show you this briefly. It will take 10 seconds. But if you can see here, look, there is chapter 6 on the chapter quiz, the digital resource, viruses, classification, and the domains of life. We've done a lot of work on those types of questions, and I think that type of question is going to come up a lot in the exam paper. And the good news is, you're going to get all those solutions are also provided online. I'll just show you there. You see there. So we go back here. So, not that one. Here we go. So look, you see there the chapter quiz, and right below it, the solutions to the chapter quiz. Now, I think they are 10 of those chapters. The solutions are up for 10 chapters. The rest of them are going to be up in the coming days. It's been a real race to get all this done, all this digital, the solutions and so on. So it's there. The last few chapters will be up hopefully in the next couple of days, but all those solutions. So yes, look at that chapter quiz digital resource for some of them chapters. I think you'll absolutely love it. There's loads of questions there, and questions that I think are going to have a bigger part to play on the new style paper. Anyhow, I won't keep you any longer. I'll pass it over to Rochelle if there's any questions there.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Very comprehensive. I think some of the questions here have been already answered. So there was a question there earlier about, is there a book section with the answer to all chapter quiz questions, etc., available to the teacher? So Wesley answered that question. We do have the TRB, and then they'll be available online.
Yeah, so the students, I think the students can access this. I'm not. I'm sure that if it's there, I think the solution can the students access the solutions for the chapter quiz? I'm not too sure, but obviously the teachers definitely can. I'm actually not too sure about the students. That's something that we,
Teachers definitely can, yeah. So, because that's with their TRB.
yeah, teachers definitely can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a question here. Are there videos to accompany each experiment?
What's that, Rochelle?
Are there videos to accompany each
Yeah, so
experiment?
for every experiment, I'll just go back there. So you will see there, for every experiment, you'll see, oh, look at my pen here. Um, you'll see, I'll just, all right, I can't get a click there, but hey, you see it there. See on the top right hand corner, see that little video sign. Is our face covering that little video sign, Rochelle, up on the right hand side there?
Yeah, no, we can see it.
Oh,
Yeah,
you can
that
see.
should be clear for everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
you can see. So every video, every investigation has that video. And look, I teach some of the videos there, and like we did this, we did the investigations before the sample papers were out. So we did the experiment, we did it well. But as I say, coming down the line, so you have all them videos available too. But coming down the line in the next, hopefully in the next number of months, you'll also get a little, you'll get a little booklet with some information, not much, because you don't want to overwhelm the student. Like they need to know one procedure very well that they can write up for the exam if they ask you to describe the procedure, like they have done in the sample paper in one or two places. But I think it's important that the student can also see different versions that they might present you with, where you might have to answer one or two style questions. So you like those types of questions, let me just exit there. Sorry, like this one here, like this style of question here. Just go back here. Oh, I'm way the wrong way. Apologies. So you see this type of question here. So look, as I said, coming down the line, hopefully it's early in this year, or in January, February, March time, you'll have a little booklet, probably digital for this year, that you'll be able to access with those different methods that they might present to you. You like as I say, you have to be very careful. You don't want to overwhelm the student with all these different types of methods. So I think it's just something sharp to the point, and say, look, here's another way to do this experiment. It's the same idea. The variables might be the dependent variable might be a little bit different how you measure it, but it's the same idea. I think I think you'll find very useful. But yes, to answer your question, you have investigation videos to all, and I have to say, there she is again there, Anna. I have to say she's such a great person just to listen to on the TV. She is brilliant on the ecology ones, like outstanding. Like, and it was a beautiful day when they done it as well. So it's really, I think the students will enjoy, maybe not enjoy, but I think they'll find them videos quite clear. But hopefully they'll enjoy them too. But I think she's brilliant at it. So yes, that's the answer. There's videos for all the investigations.
I have a request here. Could you go back to the slide on what has been removed for a moment?
Okay, yeah. What has been removed? Oh, wrong way again. Sorry. So, topics that are no longer on it there. That's the one there. So look, there is all the little tiny bits and pieces as well. But that's the main the main part of it. So there is still the skeleton on it, but just you see there the bone structure is not on it again. So look, in a way, is this course much shorter? I really don't think it's that much shorter. Like the plant reproduction chapter is much shorter. It's much easier. So look, there is some chapters that you might have got bogged down in before, like plant reproduction. You'll do that much faster. And but in terms of new chapters, it's just it's just the genetics is. The genetics is the key, the main one in terms of new material. There's a lot of new things based on DNA and genetics. A lot of the stuff that we've done before is there, but there's just more of it. And I think for me, I wouldn't get bogged down in that too early in fifth year. Maybe towards the end of fifth year, sixth year, I would kind of focus on more of the genetics. So, but again, it just depends on every teacher themselves, of course. Thanks, Rochelle.
Okay, I have a question here. Do you have any concerns yourself about time constraints compared to last year? The content hasn't changed much, but we have the 40% project, which will take up a considerable amount of time.
Look, I definitely it is going to be a problem. I think if the teacher doesn't get a lot of material done in fifth year, I think you're gonna it's gonna be a lot of pressure to get it done. You know, to do the project and get the course finished in sixth year. So my advice is, and this is what I'm telling my students, I said, look, we are hitting the ground running here. We are going to get as much of the fifth year material done. And that's why I would say yes, like when the brief comes out about the project in January, in my view is look at it and do the chapters that are associated with it. But get the students to get the students to do the research at home. Get them to do the bits that they can go and research and come up with their idea. But and try to maybe have them ready when they come back in September or October, whenever you decide to do it. You know, we've done all the research and so on, but in terms of actually doing it personally, for the first year anyway, I'm going to hold off this to sixth year in terms of the project. But obviously, we have to be given dates. But I assume the date won't be that early in sixth year to have it submitted. So yeah, that's it, Rochelle. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that I answer so get to answer some of the questions because there are loads. So I'm gonna try and keep this. I'll maybe pick two more and that's it. So sorry. Oh, someone's asking if they can see a 3D model.
Oh yeah. So I'll just hold on. I'll go down here and show. So when you go into your when you go into the EDCO website, I'll go with a 3D model, for example, animal cell. So I'll just hit play. You can see that, Rochelle, can you? Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
perfect.
So there's the cell. You can click on number two, and you can zoom in just to number two there. Number six, number eight, or sorry, number seven. I was froze there. Oh, there. Oh, yeah. So you get. Oh, there you go. So you go back out number five. So just like that, and then of course the animations there as well. You know, like some of them I think you find really useful. Some like it's just a little bit more visual. Like it's there's nothing too fancy there, but I just think in terms of for certain things, I'll just show you one here about the induced fit model. Nothing fancy, but you know, it gives it kind of just a bit of a visualization. So you don't have to go looking for the video. If you're logged on to your EDCO website, you just go onto that in class and you just show it very quickly. You know, so there's quite a few of them kind of things as well there that some teachers might find useful too. Definitely, you know. Is that all right, Rochelle?
That's perfect. We're question here. How would you incorporate chapter three, science and society, and chapter four, biological reasoning into the scheme? Would you take time to teach as a standalone topic or embed it throughout the course?
To be honest, look, it's you. My advice on chapters one, two, three, and four. Like I personally, scientific knowledge and scientific method and investigating in science. Those are the ones that I would definitely spend a bit of time on. Definitely spend a little bit of time on because they are the types of questions that I think are more likely to be asked on exams. Um, uh, but yeah, and then they tie in with all the other chapters and all the other strands. In terms of chapter three and four, there's not as much to them. And I wouldn't be overly concerned. Like, obviously, you might spend a class on chapter three there, science and society, because obviously there is an emphasis on that. But yeah, I would try to just tie them in as much as possible. I wouldn't spend too long on the chapter itself. Maybe spend a class or two, depending on the chapter one, two, three, and four. I do think chapter one and two, I think deserve a bit of class time to themselves. And so the students have a good concept of them. So then when it comes to investigations and variables and scientific procedures, they feel confident because they've covered the basics. But in terms of chapter three and four, I wouldn't be spending too long on them. Have a class look at them, and maybe just tie them in with a few other parts of some other chapters as well.
Okay, there are a lot of questions still left. So what I'm going to do is actually going to cut that off because I know you've answered a number of questions there already. So for the other questions that weren't addressed, please feel free to email us and then we'll address them. And I'll send a copy of this webinar recording as well as a copy of Wesley's slides as well within the next day or so to the people registered and also attended this webinar. So just a reminder to all of you, if you do want a certificate of attendance, just email the email address that I sent on the chat box. So that's rochelle.lazaro@edco.ie, and I'll send you a certificate of attendance. Just request them. Thank you so much for your time. Really sorry we went over over
And
time. We were hoping to try to keep it as short as possible, but I'm glad that you guys are quite engaged and you have a lot of questions. So again, if you have any more questions, just email us and we'll address them later. And thank you so much, Wesley, for your time.
yeah, thank you, Rochelle. And just one thing I would say is there, those resources are there for you. So look, like they will take a lot of pressure off your shoulders. The PowerPoints are there. You can edit them yourself. The mind maps, the flashcards, they're all there. So look, go use them because and, I think you'll benefit, and you can edit them so you can change them around as well and so on. But they're there for your own use. So I'd say hopefully you'll get the benefit from them. And thank you very much, Rochelle. And thanks for everybody for listening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.